Stand clear.
100% Wild Podcast.
So for all you listeners,
hello and welcome to
definitely not your favorite outdoor podcast.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drury Outdoors 100% Wild Podcast. You're listening to episode number 279 right now. It's powered by DeerCast. You are Matt Drury.
You are Tim Chelsvik.
And we're like an Oreo cookie. The cream this week, Steve Stoltz. What are you laughing at?
Well, he's laughing. I'm smiling.
I know
so
Steve
sweet.
for a long time, so he is like a cream.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of an old cream, but it's there. Right?
It's curdled.
It's like wine. Wine gets finer with age. Just ask your old man Winter.
Cream actually does not get finer with old.
No, it separates and gets acidic.
Yeah.
That's why I brushed my teeth
Poisonous.
this morning.
Thanks for having me here.
Hey, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for being had.
So Steve's coming in to shoot some interviews for a new season of Natural Born, and you know when these guys come into the studio, it's like, hey, let's have him on the podcast. Why not?
Then they say, "Oh, you guys have a podcast?"
Yeah.
Then we go to explain it.
Steve's been on before. Unlike I got news that Mark's farm manager Wade Robinson was recently on another podcast, and he said that in the podcast he said, "This is the first time I've ever been on a podcast." Well, so one of our listeners screenshot it and sent it to me. He goes, he must have forgot episode 170 when he was on your podcast. I go, well, we're pretty forgettable.
Verse and chapter.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, this is 279.
That's right.
Yeah.
I like that number.
Do you remember coming in to do the podcast before with us?
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah.
So
It was a turkey-oriented podcast.
It was turkey. We've done turkey, and we've done deer. We've done history of Drury Outdoors.
That's right. That's right. Yeah, you've been is it once or twice?
I think 2 or 3 times.
Look at you.
Yes.
Steve.
Yes.
You're an old pro.
I may ask for a raise eventually.
From 0 to 1.
we got some Captain Crazy's nuts for you.
He doesn't get that joke because he doesn't listen.
Now he's really uncomfortable. I don't think I want that.
Do you guys ever get serious in this thing? No.
Sometimes when Mark is on.
Yeah, when we have guests, like not to say you're not a real guest, but when we have like somebody that we don't know,
Adult supervision,
somebody that we don't know on, yeah, we usually try to button it up a little. Less of this.
We say things like perchance.
I see.
Call the guest sir.
And you guys listen to this.
Yeah, it's
and watch it.
We just ran the numbers on it, and actually a lot of people watch and listen to it, surprisingly.
It must be addicting.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know. I think it helps people feel better about themselves. Like, hey, I'm not the only knucklehead
Other than you
there.
and I.
Right.
Well, if y'all are wondering whether or not these two are having fun, they are. And,
F-U-N.
And, yeah. But on a serious note, really, I don't know if you've mentioned this, shout out to Tad Brown, our good buddy, lost his lovely wife, Pat, who is part of our family.
That's right. Yeah, the funeral and the wake and funeral are today. So Mark and Terry, Tracy and Will are both are all 4 out there. So
yes.
sad deal for Pat. That for Tad, Pat was his everything. So
she was his everything, and to us, she was like family. She was the mother hen.
Yeah.
And for many years back in the Mad Call days, the early Drury days, Pat was always, of course, at Tad's side. Tad was a huge part of all that. So.
Yeah, Tad's been on the podcast before, but it's been a little bit. But he's kind of the unsung hero of the Mad Calls days because he was behind the scenes and very instrumental. I mean, a lot of you guys were, but he actually was kind of in the trenches with Mark and Trey. He lived there at Mark and Tracy's in their basement for a long time in Columbia when Mark was still living in Missouri. So there's a lot of history there that those behind the scenes know very well.
Absolutely. So our thoughts and prayers with Tad. Tad, we love you, and we're thinking about you.
Yeah,
so.
He probably doesn't listen though.
Well,
nice sentiment, but
he may listen to this one.
Maybe so.
Yes.
Yeah. I reached out to him the other day. I feel so horrible for him. I mean, she was his everything.
Yes.
So
yeah. Same here. Yeah.
Yeah, we love him. I told him, I said, we love you like family. He's like, it couldn't wish to be a part of a better family. So
Yeah.
You'll need a little bit of support.
You could probably do a whole podcast series on significant others.
Oh yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what our better halves have done for us to allow us to do whatever we've done in the outdoor.
They're in the
industry.
trenches, and they take a lot to put up with what we do.
Yeah.
No question.
Yeah. The time away and dealing with the kids while
Yep.
you're gone, and it's tough.
All right. Well, on that note,
So-
we better move on.
Yes.
So this week's Real Wild clip, we'll tease it a little bit. If you've ever seen a deer with a jacked up rack, this deer in this clip is probably going to beat it.
There's one behind your shoulder there.
Yeah, that's a wacky. That was yours, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
What'd you call that deer?
They had a name for it that wasn't safe for on air use, and then so they call it gargoyle.
Okay.
But he was all kinds of jacked up when we killed. We've talked about it on the podcast before, but when we killed him, when I walked up to him, his whole body, like it was real mushy, like spongy, the whole body.
Oh, wow.
And when we field dressed him and caped him, he had a white. I don't know. It was I wouldn't say it was a disease of any kind, but it was like something was screwed up inside him. I don't know if he had gotten hit by a car the year before. We didn't find any like.
I was going to
wounds.
say it sounded almost like some kind of bacterial infection.
That's what it looked like.
Yeah.
It was yellow, white, pussy. It was nasty.
The stank.
It was just gross in general.
Yeah.
So that was dream season 10.
Nightmare season.
So I'm assuming you did not, unfortunately, he didn't make the table.
No, I mean, I don't think it was safe to. No, it was.
I think you can get a tag replacement. Most conservation departments will allow, like if they're not edible, they'll actually reissue your tag.
Oh, really? I didn't do that. I don't. And that was so long ago. I mean, shoot, that was probably 20. No, I'm trying to think. Dream season 10 would have been around 2006, maybe 2005, 2006. It was a long time.
That's
ago.
a long time ago. Yeah, we're aging ourselves here.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that. No.
I imagine like eating that deer would be like if the venison were like angel food cake, cutting into
Sponge.
spongy. And,
It was nasty. I mean, it was really gross. I don't know what the deal was, but like he came when he walked out of the timber, he could barely walk, and he was kind of like he's hunchback. It was real. That's what I call him, gargoyle. It was a really weird situation. So I shoot him, and then back in those days we were shooting the Thompson Center, so it was a single shot. It was probably like a 270 or something. It was one of those. Was it an Omega maybe? Anyways, so you have one shot and shoot him, and he comes running towards us, and I'm trying to because Dad's like reload. Dad was filming me, and it's the first buck I had shot in 10 years. It's because the other first buck, my first ever deer, was on Dream Season 1, the VHS series at that time. So this was 10 years later, and so I'd have been about 25 or so. Shoot him, he's running, and I was like, where is he? Dad's like, he's right below us. So I just freehand kind of look down, boom, drop him in his tracks, and we go up to him, and we poke him. It was very gross. Yeah, it was
Spongy.
really. Yeah, it was.
SpongeBob.
It was. There you go. That should have been his name.
Yeah,
SpongeBob.
SpongeBob.
Where'd you shoot him? Like when he was right? Because that's hard. When they're that close.
Shot him in the shoulder, I think, and dropped
Okay.
him. Yeah.
Time of year?
It would have been gun season. It would have been
Missouri?
Yeah, Missouri gun
Gotcha.
season. I believe, yeah, Missouri gun season. So mid November, probably opening weekend or somewhere around there.
Okay.
Heck, the Missouri app is pretty cool, like the actual conservation
the
app.
history aspect?
Yeah, I could go back right now and find it and say, okay, it was X and it was on this date. So you go ahead, and I'm going to go look now.
You go walk down memory lane. Steve, you are now a resident of Iowa. Correct?
I am. I've been a resident of Iowa since 2011 now. Or
Oh.
12, somewhere like that.
So, been longer than I.
Quite a while.
I
Yeah,
anticipated.
I wanted to move there and get everything set up for retirement. I have not retired yet, so I still have a place in St. Louis and still work in St. Louis, but I have a home up there and move my residency up there. And I commute back and forth, of course.
Okay.
I'm off a lot. I'm off with the fire department schedule. I'm off 2/3 of the year. So,
Okay.
of
And
course,
that's contiguous. Like you're just gone for a few months.
No, it's not continuous. It's
Okay.
a rotating schedule. So I'm off 4 days in a row about every other week.
Oh, nice.
And then between I'm off on 2 days in a row. So those 2 dayers and all of those 4 dayers, I'm always at my farm in Iowa.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of commute is that?
3 hours and 20 minutes.
No, that's not bad.
Doorstep to doorstep.
So how are you managing? Because I know a lot of our listeners, their hunting property is at a distance from where they live.
Yes.
How do you manage that?
Well, it's not easy. But luckily, in Iowa, where I live, I'm in southeast Iowa. I got a lot of great neighbors, which is why I wanted when I went to purchase a farm a few years ago, which I, by the way, did purchase my first farm ever. When I bought that farm, I wanted to buy it in a neighborhood where I had already established neighbors and friends over many, many years, even before I became a resident. When I first started hunting in Iowa in 1990, my brother and I first went up in the early Drury outdoor years before we even produced monster bucks.
Yep.
We start knocking on doors, and we became friends with a lot of people in the area where I now own a farm. And so the reliance on the neighbors and the friendships with the neighbors, and when I mean my neighbors, these are those people that you have a problem, they're there in 5 minutes. They're just, or less. I mean, they're always there for you. Anything that you need done, whether it be need help with tractor work, need help with food plotting, and same goes for them. When I'm up there and they need help, I help them anytime because a lot of them are into big whitetails and managing, and so I've kind of helped them along the way as well. So. Best thing I can describe is have a good security system on your home. Yeah. That monitors your temperature, of course, if anybody would break in, things like that.
Overflowing toilets.
Yes. Be able to operate your temperature from your phone and have an alert to your phone of what temperature your home is at all times for when you're gone, and then have great neighbors that are willing to, you make a phone call from 3-4 hours away, you can say, hey, my door's showing my door's open at my house, can you go check?
There's cattle in there.
Or there's something going on at the farm, somebody's called, I need addressed now, and they're able to go and handle that. So and the farm's a lot of work.
It is a lot of work.
So, yeah, I'm not going to lie to you.
How many acres do you have?
Well, I bought 153.
Yeah, that's a perfect size tract.
Yeah, it is. However, as I head towards retirement and to get completely out of debt, I'm going to have to sell 60 acres.
Yeah.
But I'll own 95. I'll turn out when it all dust settles, I'll own 95 of the best part of it. I'll have 4 different food plots on it with box blinds on those food plots. I'll have, I don't know how many muddy tree stands ladder stands is what I put up now, so that I'm keeping the best 95 that's really
The hunting part.
I'm not losing hardly any of my hunting.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is I'm going to zero debt into retirement.
Yeah, that's huge.
I'll
That's
own the
great.
farm free and clear. I own the house that's sitting on it, which, by the way, we just built.
Yeah, that's nice too.
It's a pretty little
I
house.
thought you said it was a dump.
Oh, well, off air, Tim.
Oh, okay. I heard it's really nice.
Well, it is, and I you know what? Every time I go, as soon as I show up to my Iowa house, I clean house. And you know how I do that? I press one button.
What?
Roomba?
I got a Roomba.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, you must be rich.
That's my house cleaning.
Jeez.
Better hope no dog's pooping in your house because they'll drag that turd all over the place.
No, sir. So whenever I'll get up there, and the trips that I go without my wife, which is often because
Most trips because wives don't care.
Yep.
Wives don't care about farms. She's still working as well, and we, of course, have grandchild in St. Louis area. But I'll call her and I'll go, yep, I'm cleaning house. And she'll go, did you clean the bathrooms and dust and all
Roomba
that?
doesn't do that, honey.
The Roomba's clean, taking care of it, okay?
Yeah. The floor's clean.
Yeah, clean enough.
So yeah, that's how I manage it, is good neighbors, and I go there ever since I became a resident of Iowa, because Iowa's very strict, as you know, with their residency laws. I've made it a point to be actually be a resident of Iowa.
Yeah.
Vote there, be there 2/3 of the time that I'm off the fire department. And so I've developed a life up there that I love, and be honest with you, I love it.
It's a life without the wife.
I have life without the wife, unfortunately. But I love it up there. I just love it up there. I hate going back to St. Louis. I'm really looking forward to retirement where I can be up there permanently and say, you know what, I don't have to go back to St. Louis and when I want to go, unless I want to go see my grandson.
Yeah.
Or get shot.
Or my wife. Yeah. Not necessarily in that order.
So you're saying you're not coming back.
I'm saying Dawn's not probably listening to this.
No. No, we can pretty much tell you.
Yeah,
none of our wives are listening.
We're
None of our
screwed
wives
if
are-
they start listening.
This is a free pass.
That's right. Hey, real quick. So I looked it up. I killed that deer on November 18th, 2006. I checked it at 9:25 p.m. Scotland County.
Wow.
There you go. You know,
And that took me like all of 30 seconds to find. It is
cool.
a very cool.
But you don't have very many kills in there.
No, that's number 2.
that's why it's easy to find.
Yeah. I scrolled to the bottom. No, that's it. I mean, I would have only have had 2 other kills previous to this, and a few turkey kills previous to this, and it was probably before I don't know, like what year they start entering these into the app.
I don't know.
Yeah.
By the way, back on the subject of the farm and managing from a distance, shout out if you ever are watching this. I know 1 or 2 of my neighbors are going to watch this because they watch.
Steve's a shout out guy.
They shout out to my neighbors for helping me and being there for me. I just can't thank you enough. That's what makes America so great, in my opinion, is be able to do what we do and do what we do for a living.
Yeah.
And farmers are the heartbeat of America, man. You can't,
Yeah.
I mean, it's like military. You can't live without them. You can't live without
They
them.
say you got a problem. They say, yo, I'll solve it.
Yep. And they solve it ways that I agree with personally.
Okay. Moving on.
I didn't mean that way.
Like rural justice.
Yes, a little John Wayne justice.
They got their pitchforks by the door. They got a torch that's ready to go anytime.
That's right. It's like John Wayne toilet paper. You know how that's described. Yeah. Rough, tough, and don't take any crap off anybody.
But you don't say that.
We got into a diversion last episode on Westerns.
What about West? Oh, that's right. Bonanza. And I guarantee you, Steve here probably
watches some Westerns.
Bonanza.
Well, my neighbors do. And I spend a lot of time at my neighbor's house, and I'm not going to lie to you. We drink a little bourbon every once in a while.
Appreciate your honesty.
Yes.
I didn't mean like today. I meant like back in the day when you were younger. You probably watched.
Oh, yeah. Hoss, Joey, little Joey Courtright.
Cartwright, I believe.
Okay, well, whatever.
Okay, so if I know it and you don't.
No, if you're from St. Louis, you say Courtright. Just like you say barbecue.
Horse.
Barbecue.
Horse.
That's South County. Yeah. Hardy far.
I find myself, if I'm deep south, like on a turkey hunt or whatever, and by the time the southern Mississippi, my extended family in southern Mississippi, hope you're watching this podcast. You probably aren't, but when I leave there, I'm talking more like this when I leave, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, that's not really a great accent, though. I mean, like, it's not a good version of it.
No, not at all. But at least you understood
really
me.
Bad.
Yunt, too.
Yeah. At least you understood me.
Yeah, I mean, my whole life I've noticed that Mark and Terry, depending on the crowd, will start talking a little more like
them.
Yeah,
you gravitate towards it. Sure, you do.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, politicians here in Missouri, depending on where they are, it's either Missouri or Missouri.
Which is the most annoying thing. Missouri is the most annoying thing I've ever
people
do
heard. Not call it Missouri.
Nobody does.
Yeah.
Only a politician.
So we were all born and raised in Missouri, and Missouri definitely is the state where you were not.
No,
I'm sorry.
You can go to hell,
North Central Illinois, Starved Rock Country.
You were a true Yankee. A true Yankee. Matt and I, we could
winners.
We were south of Mason,
We could
Dixon
go
line.
across the body of water and whistle Yankee Doodle Dandy on one side
Whistling
and
Dixie?
Now
on
we're
the
talking
other.
about the outlaw
That's
Josie
right.
Wales.
Well, there you go. One of the best movies ever made.
Agreed. Now we're going to talk about it.
Learned doctors.
For me and Steve. But not for you, loser.
Guess not. No, I was on the winning side.
All right. Unless you're in the Cards-Cubs rivalry, you're in the losing side.
Oh yeah. That's touchy.
Yeah.
So
well,
where you're at in Iowa, do they call it pop or they call it soda?
soda,
Okay.
no question.
All right, now that we've got all the pressing questions out of the way, let's talk some whitetails.
podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Steve, all right, going into this year, I know you that piece of property that you bought, was that a lease before you bought it, or what? Was it something you were hunting before you bought it?
No, I never hunted it. No.
So the lease that you had hunted for a long time, that was the one you had lost before you bought this piece.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So what is this the first season you'll have on this farm?
No, not at all. So this is the actual third season I'll have.
Okay.
with
So
it.
third season in, do you have some good deer you're chasing?
I do. I've got a couple that are bona fide shooters. I'm not saying
Bona fide.
They're in a bona fide. They're not Mark Drury class.
Look, none of our deer are.
Okay. None of them are the 200-inch type deer that would excite your Uncle Mark. But I did show him pictures at dinner the other day of one of them.
Bet he loved that.
And he yeah, another picture of a deer.
Oh, great.
And he did agree that one is probably mid 170s.
He starts tapping Steve on the head. Good job.
This is really
bud.
great. Look at you.
That's great. That is awesome.
Yeah, they all look big when they're in velvet.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
So it's the old saying. It looks like a 160 with velvet and 115 when they lose the velvet. So,
That's what she said.
If I had a nickel for every time I said that saying.
yeah,
It
160.
looked bigger.
I just saw that on Facebook. 160
There
to
was
160.
shrinkage.
I was in the pool. I was in the pool.
But
Right, you guys walk around with those things.
if the deer is showing he's 5.5-year-old type buck, maybe 6.5, and I call him Mr. Clean, and he's just a very, very clean 10-pointer.
Symmetrical, yeah.
Symmetrical. He doesn't. I'm not into scoring as far as
Let's hear it.
net score.
Okay.
As Gene and
None of
Barry,
us are.
Gene and Barry once always said, nets are for fish.
That's right.
So in a gross total score, great deer. Gross to net, if you're into that, he won't be much deduction on him.
Yeah.
It seems like the unhappiest of hunters are into net scores.
I mean, you're probably offending a lot of people, but I mean, we don't care about that kind of stuff. The deer is what it is. I don't get the obsession with it. Do you?
Well, can I interject?
Can I finish?
You can finish.
No, go ahead.
A score is a man-given item to an animal.
Is it?
Right. I mean, we
MG,
came, right?
man-given.
We meaning man,
Mankind.
came up with this
A kind man came up.
way to measure an animal.
Yeah.
And that animal,
We're measuring everything in inches.
yeah, that animal is
What's the mankind measurement on
that
that
animal's what it was when it genetically when it
This is going down the tube fast.
yeah, it's kind of. But
I understand.
You should
what
let
you're saying.
Tim finish his thought.
point I'm trying to make is
Let's hear it.
I just think that too much emphasis is on score. And,
Oh, sure.
And score, we got to remember, is a man-given item to a whitetail. And so the beauty of the whitetail is its uniqueness and individual quality of each individual whitetail.
We got to the point here.
Yeah.
I like it.
Brought it back around.
Yeah, there you go.
Tim, you finish your thought now.
I have
started
no idea.
this.
I don't know where I
cut
was.
you off. He cut you off. Come on, finish up.
I'm stuck on man given.
Kind man.
Keep seeing like a guy bestowing a
a
score to a deer. You are 148.
I do think it's kind of funny, like when I hear, guys back home or whoever, like my neighbor, he was helping me one day last week, and his brothers were at his house. He's like, yeah, he killed a nice 10-pointer, and the kind of old
That's how I
school
grew up,
way
was
is,
just
yeah, that's how
8-pointer,
everybody grew up.
10-pointer, whatever.
A 10 point, a 12 point. If you got a 10-pointer, holy shit, you're really doing something,
Right, right.
And so it's funny to hear it now because I just,
Is it a man given 10-pointer or a regular 10-pointer?
well, he was,
Split G2s?
I always think, I wonder, 140, 130, 150, what are we talking here? And it's just like, I wonder what percentage of people actually care at all about score. Like if there's 12 million deer hunters, how many do you think actually know
question.
squat about a score? Maybe 5%, 10%?
Or less.
You think, or less? I mean, because the majority of the hunters out there are just going for gun season, and
Right. Yeah. And then if you kind of filtered out that group by how many could actually score a deer, because I've even heard I've heard Mark say, like, you show him a picture, he's like, it's hard to really score a deer based on a picture. You need to see all the angles, you see the body. It's nice to see him in relation to other deer. I see people throw out scores all the time, and I'm like, it's just an arbitrary number you threw out.
Will send me Instagram message like, what do you think he'll score? I'm like, 150, 140. Like, I have no clue, man.
I'm devastated.
Like, what do I know?
Yeah.
I mean, I would love, we had this program that one of our guys here made a long time ago that, like, it would give you a score on a picture. It was like a program he created.
It's called a random number generator.
And it was, you had to have some basic assumptions, so like length of ear and, basic assumptions about a deer's anatomy. And it would take those measurements and then measure the rack out. And it was actually within 10 inches. I mean, that's a big difference, but like to just have a picture and not have all the angles or mass measurements, like pretty good actually, but we didn't do anything with it because it was 10 inches is all. I mean, that's a big difference, obviously.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Gross Boone. No, he was 160.
Not so much.
10 inches is 10 inches.
$200
is $200.
Can't argue with that. Hey,
That sounds like Terry.
It was John Odell, I believe.
the other Terry.
Yeah.
Young man Winter, we call him.
Sorry, John. We love you.
He doesn't listen. Don't worry.
Here's a
You
question.
can name every person on our team, and
They're
I can
not
tell you
listening.
who's listening, who's not. Also, 1%.
There's an Easter egg in this show later on about that very fact.
About
So-
John Odell and
Stay tuned.
$200, or
So circling back to
Can't give it away.
circling back to inventory. Inventory is looking great, and your Uncle Mark has put me on a lease, a 510-acre new lease that actually
really
Dave,
nice of him.
Jury Outdoor member Dave Kramer.
Yeah.
Dave Kramer was originally going to grab this lease, and he kind of fell into a different lease closer to where he lives in Iowa.
Yeah, I think his is with a brother that's got a bunch of ground
Yes,
now. Yeah.
and so it fell into my lap, which
Nice.
we worked out a deal, kind of a long-term deal,
Sweet.
For that lease, and the property has not been hunted heavily. I found out it has been hunted by one individual, but not hunted hard for about 10, 15 years. So I'm getting some great pictures on that.
Nice.
That lease. Nothing world class once again, but some really nice, few nice upper end deer.
Are you running cell cameras? Or?
I am. I'm running Reconyx cameras and cell cameras, and I'm running. I've got, I don't know, probably 8 cameras running on the 510 right now. I'd like to put out more.
Sure. Is there a lot of ag on that? A lot of
There's no ag on
Holy
the actual
shit.
farm. It's all
That's a lot of timber.
big, pretty timber and hayfields. Hayfield,
Hey.
of which the biologic is going in the ground this fall. There, I've already burned several spots for food plots. I'm gonna put in the future more food plots. Just this whole thing kind of just
Fell in your lap.
Yeah, fell in my lap just within the last few months. So not the time to get the food plots in I'd like to, but certainly time to get a few fall food plots in all fall.
Yeah.
Shouldn't you be? Isn't that like this week, next week?
I'm in the process. Yeah, I leave up. I get off work Sunday, and I'll go up and actually burn and plant. I've burned the chemical burn, and then I'm gonna actually do a live burn.
Oh.
I'm gonna match
Torch
it
that
off.
bitch.
Sick burn.
Yes, I'm gonna burn her off, and then
Like Ross, what was that? George H.
Yeah,
I'm gonna burn it off.
I'm gonna burn
Not
it.
gonna do it. Wouldn't be prudent at this juncture.
That's him.
That's Dana
That's
Carvey.
Santa Carvey doing it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Not gonna.
So I'll get the biologic in the ground, get the fertilizer in the ground, and get a couple food plots going on that farm.
Sweet.
I know this just by putting mineral out, of course, analogics, and starting to get inventory and putting the feed out for the deer. Getting a lot of great pictures. I think if we put some food in the ground, it's going to draw those deer out to a good spot to maybe
Yeah.
try and get a harvest there.
Sweet.
So, yeah.
Steve, as far as like, when deer season starts for you, so October 1st is the start for Iowa. When, if you have non-cell trail cameras, when's the last time you'll go in and check them before you hunt? Like when do you want to like make sure that you're not adding any intrusion to the area, but you're still checking?
Yeah. So for me personally, anything inside the timber, as soon as I change, there's a period that you change your cameras from either mineral and or feed or both stations to, say like if you have feeders or corn piles, if it's legal in your state to do that, mineral if it's legal in your state to do that. If not, just feed areas, areas where they come out to feed generally is where I like the trail cam. I like early season, summer and early fall. I like for them to come out to the camera. I don't like to go deep into timber for pictures. So then there's a time you'll switch over, and your Uncle Mark and Terry talk about it all the time. You want to switch your cameras over late September, early October to all scrapes. I go to all basically change those cameras that were on mineral, that were on feeders, that were on analogics, whatever you again, legal to do in your state. I'll switch them to actual scrapes. Once those cameras go to scrapes, that's when I stop the intrusion, if that makes sense. Especially the cameras that I put on scrapes in timber, close to bedding, things like that. That's when I'll just let that camera run with a very high memory chip in it, and basically getting that information for years after this year. I'm not really looking for inventory and or pictures to help me to get a deer that year. Unless I just happen to be going right by that camera and I'm intruding anyway, I'll pull the chip and get that information now. So then the feed areas, the food plots, the outside fringe areas, the destination feed, that's where I'll set the cameras up on scrapes. And that's where I'll only go in if I feel I need to check that camera, only when the wind is correct with very low intrusion. Midday.
Sure.
So it just depends on where you have the camera set.
Do you put any mock scrapes out?
Absolutely. I've always been big in.
That's right. You did. You had a piece that you put on. It was on Natural Born. Now that I think of it, 2 years ago, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
It was really informative.
Yeah. If I don't have a scrape that's already open, I make a scrape, because if you put the buck smells out there, deer will come to it. And what I've noticed over the years, and I'm no biologist, I have no degree in wildlife biology, but my observation in 61 years of doing this, or not actually 61, I'm okay, maybe 51.
There you go.
In the many years I've been doing this, I just think that a buck will cross-urinate over another buck's smell at least once. And we all know that all you need to do is get one picture of a good deer. And that tells you that tells you so many things. A lot of people will see one picture and they panic. They'll think, oh my gosh, he's just visiting, or he's a stranger, or he's shy to cameras, and they start reading all this stuff into it. No, the reality of it is, you got a picture of him, A, you know he's there, B, that's all you need to know, C, to D, figure out how to kill him.
A to D.
A to D. Don't read more into the fact that deer is on camera, and whether he shows up again there or not, you know he's alive, you know he's there, and he's close. Because I've always said this, I've said this on previous podcasts, I think most hunters don't take in consideration that if you're getting a picture of a buck in front of a camera, he's not living far from that spot. So intrusion is huge. You don't want to push him off that spot. And if you kind of treat it as if he's within, I always say, treat it as if he's bedding within 100 yards of that camera, of that picture you're getting of him, you'll never bump him out of there. You'll never intrude on him too much.
Now, there's certain times a year, though, where certainly if you get a picture, when they're like during the rut or something, their home range, it expands so much. Certainly doesn't necessarily mean he's a homeboy, but doesn't, so I would think time of year plays a little bit into that.
It absolutely does, and it's a good point, which is why my scrapes and my in-timber scrapes I use for next year and the next year's information, because many times a buck will move in, start breeding does, and he is a stranger. You don't have any pictures of him throughout the summer or fall, and now all of a sudden you're getting pictures of this great deer on November the 13th when they're in lockdown, because he's coming in and breeding the does in that area. So maybe around November 10th, 11th, get the right wind conditions, right weather, go to DeerCast, make sure all your conditions are perfect to hunt that particular stand that's in that security cover, and you got a chance at killing that buck, even though you might not have any pictures of him the next year, because he frequents that doe bedding area about that time.
Yeah, that's exactly my strategy for this year for one specific deer that we had, pictures of last year. He was kind of an early season up through the end of October. And man, middle to end of October, just hammering some scrapes back in the timber, and we never could catch up to him. It was like, man, we were on the fringe of his circle, and he was a giant then. And we've gotten some pictures, I think, him this year. And my strategy is going to just be looking at last year's photos, trying to figure out a game plan. We've planted a couple new plots for this deer, and hopefully he continues that pattern from last year, because I know once the November hits, he's gone.
Sure.
And I firmly believe that's going to be the case again this year. So
absolutely,
it's amazing. You wouldn't think a wild animal would have that kind of I don't know. It's like a memory burnt in of, hey, I go here during this time.
Consistency year.
But Mark and Terry have proven it time and time again. I'm sure you have as well. It's like, no, they'll do these patterns, generally speaking, around the same time of year in the same places.
Sure. Yes. So. Yeah. Not always, but a lot of times. Yeah. Yes. You can use that information to your advantage. Yeah. Absolutely.
Personal question for you, Steve.
Yes.
Have you ever taken a leak into a scrape?
I have never grown the cojones to do that, but my brother has, and many of my friends have, just experiment, and it's never really affected anything. Yeah. Maybe, if anything else, it's made that scrape more active.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
not advocating it.
Yeah, Aaron Bennett swears by it. He'll piss in every scrape he walks by, and I've done it. I haven't seen any negative effect to it. Certainly.
Here's what I say about urine. And this is, again, the many years about urine. This is what I say about pissing in the woods.
You and me go pissing in the woods.
Okay. I refrain, so I keep a bladder with me.
It's in your belly.
No, I keep a...
you have an internal one?
Something that I piss in, okay?
Okay.
And I just do. And what I use, by the way, here, a little tip, I go to a drugstore, or, if you can go to Walmart, to their pharmacy area, they'll sell actual hot water bottles. Oh, the old hot, where you unscrew and then put a boiling hot water in there to use for a hot water bottle. They still sell them in pharmacies, and they're not cheap. They might be $20, $25, whatever. Rich. But here's the key: they don't leak. And prior to using the hot water bottle, I never found any container or anything that you could piss in
contain your pee.
That would contain the pee. So, and the scent. Where I'm worried about scent is not pissing in a scrape or not pissing in a leaf somewhere. What I'm worried about is if I urinate in the woods, I don't want a doe to walk up and that be offensive to her, and if buck's following her, and then she goes,
I ate asparagus,
and there goes,
she's seeing MPs, I'm offended.
There blows your deal right there, because you just freshly pissed in the woods, and some smart doe, which those does are pretty smart.
Yeah.
Some smart doe just happens to come through and get spooked from
get you for public indecency.
The fresh piss. Yes.
Yep. And my dad decided that your mom was really hot.
That doe. That's what
that doe. Huge.
Steve, I don't know that you knew this coming in to the podcast, but we're children. We can't, like you said,
Verifiably.
a lot of things there that I just couldn't contain my laughter about.
No, I get it. But we're talking about pissing in the woods. So. That is the subject.
I did it last year on a hunt, and first, like, I went and sat down. I was hunting out of a ground blind, and I went and sat down, and not 5 minutes later, a young fork walked up and checked the scrape, and then peed in it.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen any. I'm sure there's, maybe studies on it, or a deer biologist would tell you otherwise, but I've never seen any adverse effect. I mean, and like during the rut, when you're putting in all that tree stand time, we just pee out the side of the tree stand.
Right.
I mean,
right.
And that is, like, as a guy, there are very few things that are more impressive than peeing out of a 20-foot tree stand.
Well, why is that impressive? You're trying to hit like a leaf?
It's like a friggin' waterfall.
Oh.
I don't know if that's impressive. I'm sorry, Tim.
Well, you come watch.
No, I don't want to watch.
Look at that.
But I will say, if you do get the water bottle from the pharmacy, make sure you empty it and rinse it out every night,
Point.
because they will start stinking quick.
Remember when we had T-Bone on? He was talking about his. I don't know what episode it was. It was probably a couple years ago. T-Bone had a camera guy that had to go number 2, and they had like this gallon Ziploc bag that the guy went into.
Ew.
But then the next day they were out hunting. The guy forgot to take the bag out of his backpack.
That's worse.
Relax, I gotta go number 1, but it could be number 2.
Definitely was. God,
Okay, well, now that we're past,
that's really
Well,
cool.
we've covered all the duty topics.
That just about does it this week, everybody.
I don't know if the audience knew what they were getting in for with the Steve Stoltz podcast this week, but we covered pee and poop real well.
but somehow or another, we always circle to
It
that.
always goes back to it.
I mean, it's part of daily life.
Do you guys want to see this wacky rack buck?
I guess, Tim.
It's the wackiest. Down in Texas, hunting with Mark Freeze.
All right, let's check out the real wild clip of the week. All right, so this deer is walking in. They got some trail camera pictures of him, and he is
His right side is growing about the eye level.
a little lower, almost like it's almost a mouth.
Swoops
They always
down.
say they're eye guards. This is a mouth guard.
Yeah.
He's. What are we looking at here? So
Mark shot this deer,
okay.
and you think, like, when you look at it, you think, oh, that maybe there's something, like the pedicle is broken and the right side is hanging down. Mark is about to grab this deer by the antlers, and it's solid. That's the way that deer's antler is growing.
Yeah, it grew that way.
You wonder what kind of injury or deformity that thing had to have early on for it to grow so solidly that direction, that far south.
I think obviously it was an injury and or deformity, and
Why didn't we show the kill?
It's graphic.
Who edited this? Matt A.
Some kid.
But it does show, Matt, how tenacious whitetails are.
Well, sure, yeah, like that I would imagine would be hindrance to that deer's.
Oh, just with the
Daily.
ladies alone. He's not getting any does.
Well,
Remember Sloth from the Goonies?
Yes.
That's who he reminds me of.
Hey, you guys,
he probably had a lot of luck with the Terry Drury does, which they were blinding him one eye and couldn't see out of the
the
other.
way can kill him.
Yeah.
Couldn't see out of the other.
Doe Ninja.
Sorry, Terry.
He's also not listening.
No, he's probably not.
Terry do be killing does.
He might have caught the first couple minutes and then he tuned out.
Yeah.
Steve, where do you stand on shooting some early season does?
I think that's the best time to shoot them. I think a lot of people wait too long to start shooting does, and then when you get to where they're starting to come into estrus, it's not highly recommendable to on November 1st to shoot a doe with the possibility of a good buck following her. Although I have done that and shot that good buck, kind of trailing later, and think, man, I almost screwed up here, and it didn't cost me, but. I think early season is the best time to harvest.
The tough thing is with whitetail hunting, there is not always a negative feedback loop for you. You don't know, like if you take that shot on a doe, you don't know the buck that you maybe just spooked. You don't get that feedback. It just happens out of sight and out of your awareness. And
here's what I would recommend. Just me personally, if you're on to a good, first off, early season, I'm not a morning hunter for early season personally.
Yeah.
I don't start morning hunting till probably almost November, basically. Sometimes a little late October, but usually about November 1st is here in the Midwest is about when I start morning hunting. I'll go by DeerCast. Since DeerCast, their algorithms are so, in my opinion, so accurate as far as when the movement starts looking good in late October, early November, that DeerCast is saying you need to be in a tree stand in the morning. That's when I start. But early season, I don't want to mess up a deer that's bedding close to that feed. He's in his routine. You've went through great pains all year to make sure that you haven't intruded, that you haven't bumped him out of there, and he's still working, and he's still in his home core area, his little bedding area, and doing his little feed routine. I don't want to mess that up in the morning going in on a tree stand and mess his routine up and literally take a chance of not being able to see him that evening in that same spot. So my whole early season is all just afternoon and evening hunts. That being said, what I would recommend, since this is me hunting and what I do for big whitetails, if you're onto a good buck in a particular spot, either refrain from shooting a doe there, or if you want to take a doe there, do it earlier in the afternoon, maybe within a certain time frame from the time you climb the tree.
Yeah.
Say it gets dark at 6 o'clock in the evening where you're at, and you climb the tree at 2:30 or 3 o'clock. If you get a doe show up the feed at 4:30, maybe take her out. It's not going to disturb much. It probably won't even disturb him if he's bedded not far away. But as it gets closer to the evening buck movement time, I would probably refrain from shooting a doe.
we had this exact conversation last week talking about our calculus for taking a doe and if we're going to. And one of my things was I get nervous about having a bloody arrow in the set right in front of me.
I don't think that bothers them.
I mean, so what do you think? Like, what's been your
bloody
experience?
arrow's not the issue. The issue is disturbance when that buck. So a good buck that's bedded close to his food source, which usually they are, which is why in your Uncle Mark and your dad Terry, they've preached for so long about building to that buck, building planting that food plot close to where that buck is bedded.
Yeah. Plant to your position.
Plant to your position and put that, they even go so far, they'll set their blinds up sometimes, set up for that particular buck, for a particular wind. I mean, they've got it down to a science. Obviously, the proof is in their results. So, they're shooting great whitetails every year. But more importantly, that deer, if you don't want to, screw the pooch, so to say, he is.
I wish you wouldn't talk like that.
He is. I'm sorry. He is looking for anything to tell him to not go there. Okay, so if if it gets closer to time for movement for him to get up, and we talk about urinate, flex his muscles, start feeding, moving out to that feed, whether it be 100 yards or whether it be 300 yards, and he starts hearing blowing and snorting and stomping and running and all the things that's tied into maybe you shooting a doe, disturbance, he may not show up that night. And that's just how big whitetails operate. He may say, you know what?
I'm just going to lay here for another
I've
4 hours.
I've lived 5.5, 6.5, 7.5 years now.
Had a good run.
And I'm on a good run here. I'm on a good run.
Look at my man-given rack.
my man-given rack. And so you don't want to mess that up.
Yeah.
I just don't think it's worth the chance, for freezer meat.
I mean, I think it depends on what your goals are, or what kind of deer you have on your property. If you're managing, like high-end managing, I like the guys I know, Mark, they very rarely shoot early season does. It's usually late season. They go,
That's when they start taking them out.
they go ham on them.
That's
But
usually once they've tagged out.
yes,
Yeah.
but Terry's crew, they are shooting does early season. Like he shoots a ton of does early season, but he's not shooting them in his best spots.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Like it's a lot of times it's like the perimeter edge type of food
Good point.
plots, and he's almost got like food plots far killing does.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Which
So-
goes along with what I'm mentioning. I mean, if you're, it kind of depends on the spot. I mean, if you're onto a big whitetail and you don't want to disturb them, you may want to hold off on shooting a doe right
he's not
there.
going to the center of the property and walking a doe.
Yeah.
The one thing that I've noticed is that does tend to respond the worst to bloody arrows, and it's
They
not,
respond the worst to everything.
yeah, they're turds. But it seems like they respond worse to arrows with a little bit of gut material on it. Like the few does I've shot a little far back, something about that gut smell really sets them off.
Well, it's horrible.
It's horrible, but you wonder if it like triggers something like that shouldn't. There's no like that shouldn't be
Hey,
here.
Debbie got shot in the guts.
what
the hell?
what happened there?
Well, bottom line is, if you think you're going to mess your hunting up for that evening for a targeted buck, you may want to hold off. And to Matt's point, set yourself up for success in that. Hang some stands for doe killing. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are doe travel corridors that typically bucks don't travel through. You're not going to bother them. You got to think about the before, during, and after on any hunt, even if you're doe hunting, and that means what's going to happen when you go in there, how much you're going to disturb. If you shoot a deer, where's that deer going to run? Where's she going to run? Yeah. Is she going to run into a known big buck
thick bedding area?
Bedding area that that targeted buck that you've spent all year trying to not disturb. Now she's run right in there, and you got to get her out of there. Things like that. So if you set yourself up on food plots and on different type of travel corridors that bucks aren't frequenting as much, which they're there because does they're going to be at the feed every night. Yeah. Nothing's going to spook a doe off feed. Nothing. And so just shoot them in those type of spots.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And I would wait for a great shot angle, a great shot in general. Like I wouldn't press it, because if you make a bad shot, your night, I mean, it's going to be, it's going to suck. Mm-hmm. You're going to just walk all through the timber looking for, you don't want a mile blood trail for a doe. I mean, that's just the reality of it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So I wouldn't press a long shot or do something stupid. I would wait for the exact right scenario with a good angle and make sure that everything's kind of lined up to hopefully have a short track job.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. Use that doe kill for practice for a buck kill.
Yeah.
And you want that shot to be perfect for a buck kill, and you want the patience. Yeah. You want all that patience, because bucks are harder to take down. Let's face it.
Yeah.
There's more blood volume. There's just bucks are harder to take down. So you want to use those does as practice. They're a little smaller target. Mm-hmm. Practice for shot angle, shot placement, and make sure everything's perfect, even for that doe. And of course, rage in the cage helps too.
Yeah.
You're
in the sea.
Oh man, those
kids say.
I mean, it's they're not foolproof, but they're darn near. I mean, you hit a deer, throughout any of their rib cage with that rage, and it's just a deadly combination.
I don't understand the heat that rage takes. You go online and they take a lot of crap, and I don't understand it, because I've seen our team kill. I don't think thousands would not be an exaggeration, because we'll, as a team, might kill 100 plus a year. You don't get a big team, so that's why. But think about it. We've been shooting rage since maybe like 04, 05. When did Larry make that? I'm trying to think.
It's been early Drury years.
Yeah, 05, 06, maybe. I don't know, somewhere in there. We've been shooting them ever since, 100 a year for that many years, and by and large, haven't had any mishaps. And people are always like, oh, it's that you don't get like you had an issue where a blade opens in flight, and like I've only seen that maybe once or twice out of thousands of kills.
Yes, yeah.
So I don't know if it's user error or what, because I mean, certainly that can happen back when they had the collars, and now a lot of them are no collar. But back when you had the collar and you had to have it just right, and say you're going in the dark and your blade deployed and you didn't know it, like I can understand those instances. But even that, like the first thing I do, even in the dark when I get my arrow out of the quiver, is check the broadhead and before I put it on
Well, and I'll be honest with you, I was never a expandable fan until Rage came out with the Extreme, which is a
2,
knife.
3.
I've always been a knife blade broadhead guy. You can ask your Uncle Mark and your dad. I shot a knife blade broadhead for years, cut on contact broadhead. So I am a big fan of those type of broadheads.
Are you saying the chisel tip version?
No,
just
a knife
regular,
blade, like a knife, blade, where you actually sharpen yourself. But when Rage come out with the Rage Extreme, I was like, okay, I got to see what these things can do, and they are incredible. It's a fixed blade broadhead with a Rage behind it.
Yeah.
And 2.3. Yeah, 2.3 inch opening, and the blood trail is like nothing I've ever seen any broadhead ever.
How do those tune versus like
beautiful,
a field point?
Beautiful. They may shoot a hair low.
Okay.
I mean, what I mean by a hair, I mean almost not enough to move your pin.
Okay.
But they will shoot just a hair lower than a field point. So what I do is I'll take the Rage, an actual Rage broadhead. I don't use the practice broadhead.
Together.
I do, and I'll take almost like that fishing line that's a cord, not nylon fishing line, but the
braided stuff.
The braided fishing line. I'll tie 2 or 3 wraps of that, tie it off so that those blades don't deploy, and that's what I sight my Rage in with.
I know you and Scott both glue yours,
Super glue,
right? Like a head that's been used, and it's a little more dull, but you'll super glue them closed and
accomplish the same thing.
Now, does that add much weight? Does that add any weight to it?
To the people that freak out about grams and stuff, like I shoot it without a collar. Obviously, it doesn't need a collar, so I just figure it's probably just a wash at that point. But close enough.
Bottom line is you do need to always shoot the exact broadhead that you're going to hunt with, and if it hits any different or flies any different, you need to make the adjustments.
So I got some Rage practice, which they don't make them anymore, but I just had some from years ago, Rage practice heads.
Yes.
But then I also have like field points, and I don't really see a big difference in, I mean, again, like I'm not super technical, but I don't see a big difference in how they fly.
That's the beauty of it, is
that's the beauty of Rage.
I don't really see any difference in it, frankly, but I'm not that good of a shot either. So it's like, hit about an inch this way this time and an inch that way.
Well, and that's the big differentiator between a cut on contact. A lot of times you will have, like, it will fly different than your field tips.
Absolutely, because you have wind planing.
The profile is very different.
Yeah, the profile is different. So, bottom line is that's the beauty of Rage. They fly like field tips. And what is the best thing for penetration? Proper arrow flight. Proper arrow flight and kinetics behind that arrow.
I would have said dinner and a date.
Yeah, well, that's...
Wait. Oh, no.
All right, we better move on. What's this? What's next?
Man, that sounds like it costs money.
Yikes, that's an innuendo, friend.
All right, so let's move on to the question of the day.
Palate cleanser.
Question of the
I
day.
shouldn't have said that.
Yeah, it's proudly brought to you by Victory Archery, the carbon arrow experts. And it's Dustin Kohler here. Let's go. Let's go, Dustin.
Hey, guys. My name is Dustin Kohler, and I am from Arnold, Missouri.
Hey.
Actually have a farm that we hunt on, or a piece of property down in Madison County, Missouri. But my question is, what are the best tactics for planting early season food plots to make sure that the deer are, getting to these plots in the appropriate amount of time to make sure that we kind of create a home base for them on our property? Thank you.
Well,
Stevie?
Dustin, first off, you're in Madison County, Missouri, and it's tougher to grow big whitetails down there, but there is an area along the Castor River in Madison County, Missouri that has great genetics for big whitetails. I would say first and foremost, make sure you plant your food plots away from the roads, where people,
road hunters.
Other Madison County.
Yeah, I'm just saying, just the way of life down there, you don't want your deer being seen from the road very much.
Yeah.
So set yourself up for success, seriously, by planting your food plot in areas where they're not easily seen by the road. And I'd say try and plant close to creek bottoms and places that you got a little more moisture. Sometimes it's a little rougher ground down there, so you want to again set yourself up for success in where you're choosing food plots. I personally like to plant a food plot in a spot that's already good. So Dustin, pick out the spot that deer are already coming through. You already got tree stands in the areas, and they're already traveling through. Maybe it's a portion of your hay field or ag that you have down there or whatever. And so you're picking a spot that's already good. They're already traveling, and then plant a food plot, and then it's going to just get that much better.
As far as early season, if he's looking for a food source that's better for early season palatability, you might want to look into something like deer radishes, or if you're saying you want them to come there early season, but this is the plot, the only plot you'll have, I would look into something like Last Bite, maybe, that's kind of covers you throughout the whole year. Or if you planted Last Bite and you put a little extra clover in it, non-typical clover, you could then go in and frost seed it in February, and then you have a clover plot. So that's another thing.
Absolutely. Great point, Matt. Do it. I would highly recommend a clover-based all-fall plot to start, and eventually emphasis on the frost seeding and bringing it to just a clover food plot down the road. And if you want to plant some radishes, turnip, winter bulbs, sugar beets, whatever, plant half that, or down the road, but establish that clover, because deer love clover almost more than anything else.
And if you're just planting now, you're not going to get the clover to do anything. You got to plant something else that you can then turn into a clover plot, that's what Last Bite. That's what we do when we want to establish a clover plot. We'll put in Last Bite, put a extra non-typical clover in with it, and which it already has a clover in it, I think. And then you go in and frost seed, and you're set. Like, it's going to be a lush, beautiful clover plot come spring.
Mm-hmm. And then from that point forward, Dustin, first off, green is the thing for early season. I think green is the answer, and so we're talking clover and Last Bite, and then it comes down to is keeping it mowed, fertilized, maintained. Frost seed, and hopefully get a lot of rain.
You probably, depending on how the soil is down there, I don't know, but based on how you're talking about it, I would think you might need to lime the hell out of it. So you might want to do a soil test.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And do that first to see what it's lacking.
Bring that soil up, whatever you got to do to bring it up to that 6.8 to 7.0 pH level.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So there you go, Dustin. So if you want to leave us a question of the day and be on air, just hit the link that's in the show notes, and you may hear yourself on the show. And if you do, shoot me a message on the Rack Pack, and we'll get you a 100% Wild Podcast hat. Now it's time for the wildlife word, the thing everyone's been waiting for. Woo-wee. It's brought to you by Tenzing Outdoors, makers of the Hang Time Day Pack. Go further, hunt longer with Tenzing. Okay, so New Zealand deer ranchers are creating a new demand in fine dining for this tasty treat. Is it A, deer hoof shavings, B, deer milk, C, deer eyelashes, or D, deer cartilage?
All sounds gross to me.
What are they eating?
Steve.
I'm going to say deer hoof shavings.
Delicious, like Fritos.
Well, they're obviously having to pull from a source continuously, right? So if it's deer cartilage, then they have to actually
kill the deer.
Yeah.
It's like you didn't want to say that.
Well, no, but
they have a ton of deer there, don't they? In New Zealand? Like,
I don't know. That I don't know.
I felt like they do.
Okay.
I don't know. Like that's actual like a farming resource there, is it not?
Yeah.
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 I-
They're not wild sourcing this stuff. These
Yeah.
are captive deer.
I'm saying deer milk. I don't know. B.
You
deer
do
have
know
milk?
it is deer milk. Yes, it's apparently more nutritious than cow milk.
I'd like to try the hoof
they're-
shavings.
Well, you can do that on
Need
your
a
own.
little more
this fall.
fiber in your diet, do you?
Your wife's like, "What is?"
I'm
this?"
not into deer milk.
Yeah, they're making ice cream treats out of it, and cooking with it.
No,
All right.
not gonna do it.
Nice.
Circle back. I like it.
All right. Well, we need to give a shout out to Dustin Wiseman, who is our 1,000th Rack Pack member.
Dustin is the guy that we use for. I just thought you mentioned this the other day, the name, and it didn't dawn on me. Like, he's the guy that we use for all of our bean and corn, like, that we buy through.
Small world.
This is smart. Is this?
Congratulations, Dustin.
You win nothing. Like the whole, what is that? Oh, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, the original.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You, sir, win nothing.
I think every child should watch that movie.
Oh, it's horrific.
It'll make you think twice about disobeying.
Yeah. Veruca Salt.
Yeah.
I was a abused child. I
Whoa.
grew up watching Kurt Gowdy, American
that's-
Sportsman,
Marty Stauffer.
Marty Stauffer, stuff like that. I didn't.
Until next time,
I didn't.
enjoy our wild America.
Yes. All those
Mom
are.
are hillbillies.
Sorry.
But you
Well, the Rack Pack continues to grow. I mean, we just had a major influx of people. I think folks are inviting their friends to see the
They
shenanigans.
don't all necessarily listen to the program, but they're in that Rack Pack, certainly.
We'll take them.
We're sooner or later going to get you into the show.
Gonna get you.
Gonna get you. This is how we start. It's like fun and games over on the Rack Pack, and then you come over and listen to an episode of the podcast, and we suck you in.
We hit them with the serious stuff
Hit 'em with
over
the
here.
iron. Yeah.
Well, Mark LeCount watched last week's show with Kyle Lamore. He said, "Great stuff, guys. Really enjoyed this one. Kyle was awesome. Funny, great guy, personality. The golf cart story was hilarious." Which I agree. Go back and listen to it if you haven't.
Still healing.
How's the
from
bruise
it.
coming along?
It's starting to disappear.
Okay.
But the leg is, man, I was at the farm Tuesday doing some food plot work, and I was wearing my lacrosse and the lace ups. And I got home that night, and I guess maybe from that is the foot that gas and brake and all that stuff, and just being on the tractor all day, like it was swollen. Not the part that was under the boot, but the rest of the leg was so swollen.
Ankles?
Yeah, my wife's like, "What the hell happened to you?" And I'm like, "I think this is from the golf cart injury." To bring that back.
She was even more impressed with you.
Yeah.
as a
Oh,
husband.
disappointed.
Mark says, "Don't worry, Matt. Just before you hit 50, the light bulb comes on and you'll settle down a bit."
Oh, I got 9 years to figure it out.
Looking forward to episode 300. Put your thinking caps on. You almost have to have a special guest for that one. Great job, guys. Love what you're doing, and don't stop with the sound bites. In fact, add more.
Well,
Good sound bites. That one
the
down.
earlier gas thing was real. It wasn't the soundbite.
It was you.
Yeah, I think.
We sample our own audio. Thank you.
I got diarrhea.
You know who that is?
No.
Joe Eichster. The voice should have
I
tipped
should
you
have.
off.
Sorry, Joe.
He doesn't listen.
All right.
If you just keep naming all the team members, I'll keep telling you who's listening. They aren't.
Lucille, if you're out there watching, she's not watching the show.
No.
We love you, Lucy.
Yeah. All right. I think I named like 4 people that Steve is like, "Hey, if you're watching," I'm like, "They're not."
Nope. You want to try for some more?
No.
No.
Oh, just realize no one's listening.
No one's listening.
Nobody.
Yep.
I don't even know why you're on.
I don't know either.
Just happy to be here. Had some spare time.
Yeah, did he?
Wandered in off the street.
All right. I got some farming to do later, so we got to get moving, Tim.
All right, let's do it.
All right. We're going to welcome some new Rack Pack members. Speaking of the Rack Pack, it's a private Facebook group.
Very private.
All you got to do is go search Drury Outdoors Rack Pack. and you'll find it.
Yeah.
And then you got to answer a couple dumb questions, and then then you're in.
If you happen to be watching this right now.
Yeah, I mean, that's our listening. That's
Yes.
the thing.
If you're not, don't worry about it.
Yes.
Okay. Every week, Tim gives me a list of names. Every week, I butcher them. Every week, there's a fake one. We have to figure out who. Stevie.
Oh, okay.
All right. So we got Robert Cardenas. We got John Clausen, Rich K. Mark Boltman, Mike Bennett, Chase Crooker. Chase Crooker. He spells Chase weirdly. Olivia Burkholder. Kyle Lamore, that son of a gun. He was just on the podcast, and we're like, you're not even in the Rack Pack. So we got Kyle, Josh Phillips, and Ron Anderson. Who the hell's the fake name? Chase Crooker. Chase Crooker.
Wow.
Mark Boltman. Josh, Ron Anderson. I got nothing.
This is three-dimensional, guys.
Robert Cardenas.
Robert's never heard his name pronounced like that in his whole life.
I'm trying to really sound everything out, see if there's a hidden message.
No, it's hiding in plain sight. It's Kyle Lamore. Even though he said he was going to join the Rack Pack, he still never joined.
He still hasn't joined. That son of a bitch. All right, I'm gonna.
That was gonna be my answer.
Sure, Steve.
Of course, the team member is not going to join up. That's silly.
Why would they support a venture of ours?
I mean, we're just.
Is Steve in the Rack? Are you in the Rack Pack? Okay. Get the hell out of here. Get off our set.
He will be by
sir.
next week.
Get off the dais.
I never knew it existed.
Yeah, well, that means you don't listen. I bet you've listened to, how many podcasts did you say you were on of ours? Has it been two or three?
Two or three.
I bet he's listened to two or three.
Yeah.
Playback for quality control.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Someone's got to.
I listened to Cuz Strickland and Paul Butsky and Rob Keck.
Okay, you've been on
there
a
you
few.
go.
You've listened to a few.
Yes. And Michael Waddell.
I've had all the great guests on before the working class little Curtis has. They keep getting our guests after we have them. Although I said to Tim, I'm like, hey, we should have Wade on. And then the next day, Wade showed up on working class saying that he's never been on a podcast before. I'm like, this son of a. I told him.
It's a huge honor, guys.
I told Tim, I was like, we're gonna push Wade back a little bit.
Never been on a podcast. Don't even know how this works.
Well, I of course appreciate. It's fun doing these things. If you again wonder if we're having fun, we're having fun.
Shout out to everybody having fun out
We're
there.
having fun. And this is a cool thing, and keep up the good work.
Hey,
however good it may be.
Yeah.
And I'm a big boy.
We look forward to seeing your season this year, seeing if you knock down that 170.
I appreciate it. Last year was, and we're getting ready to do some interviews on that here at the studio. But last year was very challenging for me, and end up getting the target buck, and the biggest buck that I knew of under pretty tough circumstances.
Yeah.
And I've got it got a little bit better this year, but that doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to come home with the harvest.
Each year stands on its own.
Yeah, there's a pressure there. It's like you're expected to.
Yeah,
It's not easy.
It's no. I think that's the I don't know, urban legend that people have about people that hunt on film, in television shows and or web shows, whatever it may
the
be
hell
nowadays.
this is.
Yeah.
Radio dramas.
They just those monster bucks just don't travel by us day in and day out. I mean, they just don't. They really don't. You're just. I've always said this. You're seeing the best few minutes of months and months of work and preparation, and you're seeing all that condensed down to a 10, 15 minute piece.
That's right.
So.
Hopefully it's good.
Yeah. If not, you're out.
You're done.
You're done.
I got a lot of problems with you people.
Speaking of, we've already got some people auditioning for guest spots on the Rack Pack or the podcast.
Yeah, this here program.
So we'll see how that goes.
Okay.
Some of the audition reels have been funny. Some are kind of flat.
And if they're flat, you may not get the call up, fellas.
Yeah.
It's nothing against you,
Well,
but it is you.
Wait a minute. You're serious.
Yeah,
This has been the only time you've been serious this whole show, but go ahead.
Sorry.
We're
I was
auditioning for some of the Rack Pack members to be guests on this here program.
Aha.
Program.
And who exactly is looking through the auditions?
Tim. And then he shows me.
So both of us.
Both of us.
You made it sound like we did something wrong.
But you have access
Tim
first.
did it, and
I was there.
Then he just told me about it.
Okay, Rack Pack members, if you're watching right now, which you probably are, good luck.
There's a chance
Shout out
that
to all
not
the
many of you are
Rack
going to
Pack
make the cut.
Yeah.
Don't be offended. All right.
Okay.
I think we've had enough of
Let's
this.
shut it down.
I got to get to the farm,
Next
and then
week
another
is
farm, and then back to the first farm.
Dang,
Continue.
farming it up today.
Yeah.
All right. Next week's episode 280.
Quick mention, of course, DeerCast. What's Mark's prediction for this year's rut? Is it in quick general?
I don't know yet. We haven't shot the interviews, actually. I think the moon, I don't think they're crazy about this year's moon based on what we've been talking about, like just via text. And I think it's going to make it tough. I think the full moon's October the 9th or somewhere in there. So if we have a cool front in early October, you might get lucky there on some green. I think the middle of the month is going to suck potentially, especially if it gets warm. And I don't know. I mean, I think that puts the full moon in November probably around the 10th or so.
Yeah, be about, yeah.
So, you're thinking afternoons in the first week of November would be better, which is not really ideal, right? I mean, you wish that it would be morning movement, good morning movement.
Right.
And then I think gun season could be pretty good, actually, which is maybe not great for the deer.
Yeah.
So I say all this I preface this to say I know nothing.
I was gonna say, who's Mark Drury?
We should have the real.
Matt Drury.
What are your thoughts on it, Steve? You know way more than I do.
Well, obviously, I'm a big, if the moon's active, that deer can be active, rising and falling, and Mark and Tara are big believers in that as well. And I don't go just by that, but I do select my, it's big on tree stand selection or blind selection where you're going to be hunting. And you mentioned about a full moon November 10th. Well, if you have a full moon and it's active in the middle of the day, yeah, the hunting's going to suck, but be back in security cover because the time of the rut is in the Midwest will be almost a peak.
Yeah.
And they'll be locked down with does. So you want to be in that security cover throughout midday. So you think, well, it sucks.
All day.
Yeah, you can
Bring the water bottle.
Here's the thing: when it starts getting tough like that, and when Mark's predicting possibly, maybe not so much a tougher moon phase, which means maybe a tougher rut. Those moon phases just expose different parts of the rut, as does weather, than others. So take advantage of what that moon phase will expose, and if it exposed midday movement, that means you got to spend more time in a tree. That means you got to work harder to have the same results.
Yeah. Again, don't quote me on anything I said.
Oh, crud.
I'm regretting.
No, because like you said, your Uncle Mark and Terry, they haven't done their predictions yet.
Yeah.
So.
I know nothing. I say this again. I don't even know that that's the right day for the full moon.
Bottom line is, it's hunting, and hunt when you can, so forth.
What?
But DeerCast is. Just pay attention to DeerCast, man. It's all going to be on the DeerCast.
We're filming this on the 12th here in August. Full moon was yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think so.
Close.
So
yes.
I'm close on those dates. I mean, roughly.
Yeah, it's going to be
You're
within
talking
a few
about the
days.
Earth moon, right?
Yes.
Okay.
The only moon, Tim.
There's lots of moons in the solar system.
Well, in our world.
The man-given moon.
But bear in mind, and you mentioned about warm weather. Weather can trump moon sometimes too. So.
Yeah, they say it all the time.
Yep.
All right. Now,
Can we please
let me get out of this?
go?
Before I say something else that's fake.
Tell us everything you know about barometer, Matt.
It rises and it falls.
Hey, there you go. All right. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
We're sorry. Until next time, peace out.
DeerCast is now supercharged with maps. Get ahead of your game with killer new features like live Doppler radar, wind check out to 5 days, virtual rain gauges, GPS path tracking, and more. Plus, get our 14-day revolutionary DeerCast prediction and access to DeerCast Track. Prep, predict, and pursue with DeerCast.
We're adding new videos every week, so make sure to click that subscribe button and check out all of our amazing content. This episode of DOD TV was brought to you by Bass Pro Shops in Cabela's.